Resistant Forms is the first major survey of Guyanese-British artist Donald Locke here in London. Despite his significant contributions to 20th century British sculpture, Locke's work has been under-recognised, particularly in the UK. Spanning 5 decades, from the mid-1960s to the late 2000s, the exhibition celebrates Locke's wide-ranging practice.
Donald Locke was born in 1930 in Guyana, which at that time was a British colony. And in 1950, he was awarded a British Council scholarship to come to the UK. The first room of the exhibition focuses on Locke's early ceramics. These are hugely influenced by his time at Bath Academy of Art and the notion of vitalism, which sought to draw from the vital principles in nature, the regenerative force of matter itself.
Locke moved to London in 1970, and it really also marked a moment in his career when he started to move towards working much more with assemblage. He actually exhibited twice during the 1970s at Camden Art Centre, once in a group exhibition in '75 and under a pseudonym in an earlier exhibition in the early 1970s. One of the key works in the exhibition from this period is a work called Trophies of Empire. And this is a work where he began to use what he referred to as bullets. He was very open to interpretation in the way that his work was read. Various people have seen them as more kind of phallic forms. They remind me a bit of the kind of lingam form that you find in Hindu culture, which is a kind of symbol of creative, very masculine energy. So many of the found objects that are used in Trophies of Empire were found on Portobello Market or scavenged from kind of second-hand shops near where he lived in Ladbroke Grove. Many of the works that Locke made while he was immersed in London's cultural scene were lost or destroyed, but we do have a core group of the surviving mixed media sculptures as well as the monochrome paintings from his Plantation series, which he made between 1972 and 1976. These are characterised by gridded structures and combine wood, leather, fur and other materials. The series alludes to the plantation economy which was imposed under Dutch and British colonial rule. Locke grew up between 2 sugarcane plantations in Georgetown, and he often reflected on their pervasive presence, remarking that they dominated the sky, dominated your life from beginning to end.
In the 70s, Donald made a series of environmental interventions, firstly taking his bullet sculptures out into the environment in regions that are sort of undisclosed locations, but through England, France and Spain, situating them in the environment and photographing them, both in urban and rural locations. And when he moved to Arizona, he continued in this line of thought and making, taking 15 black canvases out into the Arizona desert in a work that was titled Arizona Squares. When Donald moved to Arizona and he was teaching at the Arizona State University, he had access to a bronze foundry, which was hugely liberating for him to work in this new medium. And he experimented also with his own patinas. So this is the first moment that colour really explodes into his practice with this gorgeous blue cerulean colour. And it's at this moment as well that he introduces mythology into the work. He moved to Atlanta in 1990 and took up a studio for 5 years at Nexus. This was a hugely prolific time for him when he was working almost exclusively in medium and large-scale paintings. And these paintings introduce new elements onto the surface of the canvas. So he's working with heavily impastoed paint that looks almost like bitumen, and it's embedded with sawdust and metal oxides and fibers and other materials that he finds in the environment where he's working. And incorporating images that he finds in magazines, images that he's photocopied, and most notably photocopies and images of his own works, his earlier sculptures. The final room of the exhibition is dedicated to the late period of Donald's work while he was living in Atlanta and heavily informed by the vibrant art scene in the American South. Their methods of bricolage, of assemblage that drew from the environment around them, a kind of junkyard aesthetic using what was at hand to bring materials together with a new kind of vitalism which really diverged from the early formalism. In this period, Donald creates an increasingly influential mythic structure around the work, drawing from narratives and mythologies, both from Guyana as well as the American South and classical mythology as well. One of the most abiding of these inspirations are the Temeri petroglyphs from Guyana. These petroglyphs are markings made on the inside of caves in the interior of Guyana, and the name of them, Temeri, translates as hands of man. So in a way, tracing his own artistic practice right back to his earliest artistic forebears.